we approach the end of October, it means it's not far now for us to be in the midst of magnificent Movember. And very pleased that this year we've got a collection of countries from the PageGroup world across Asia Pacific who've all committed to set up teams and have some healthy rivalry as we see how we can really get involved with Movember and make a difference to some really important causes and have some fun along the way. I'm really delighted to have a chance to speak to the CEO of Movember, Michelle Terry, and welcome. Thank you for taking the time to have a chat with me. It must be a really busy time. Could you let us into what's happening at the moment with Movember and a bit more about the vision, and how do you think that relates to what has been a pretty extraordinary year for us all?
Fantastic. Thank you, Anthony, for having me, and a huge thank you to the PageGroup for participating in what we like to call the hairy season here at Movember. So in terms of the vision and the history of Movember, this started off in 2003 in a pub in Fitzroy in Melbourne in Australia, where two mates, Travis Garoni and a guy called Luke Slattery, were having a quiet beer in a bar, and they were having a banter and discussing the moustache and how it had gone out of fashion, since the 1970s, and joked about bringing it back. So they had an idea, and they talked their mates into growing a mo and created a campaign about men's health and prostate cancer. They found 30 blokes who took up the challenge and lent their top lift for the 30 days of November, forever known now as Movember. And 17 years later, and millions of Mo's later, Movember is a leading men's health charity which has got a presence in more than 20 countries around the world. And we focus on men's mental health and suicide prevention, prostate cancer and testicular cancer. We're taking them all on, and we've funded more than 1,250 men's health projects in 20 countries around the world. And we've shaken up men's health research. We've transformed the way that men's health services reach and support men. In terms of 2020, great question. Now, it's been a huge year of curveballs and challenges for everybody around the globe, and a lot has changed. The COVID-19 pandemic has increased anxiety for many. It's also heightened pressures, not only of a global health crisis, but a social and an economic crisis as well. And the world's changed, but our goal hasn't: to reduce the number of men dying prematurely by suicide by 25%, and also by halving the number of deaths between prostate and testicular cancer by 2030. And we know men are struggling out there more than ever, and we want to lean in and help.
And the topic of mental health, I don't think, has ever been more prominent in terms of conversations that people are having. And I think the typical way to start a conversation of asking someone, how are you, has never had greater meaning. And I think we're all trying to probe a little bit more and really find out how people are when we ask that we ask that question. Do you have any advice for business leaders or just people in general who it's perhaps not in their natural character to address the sorts of topics, and how do they or how do you suggest people attack such a sensitive area in a way that's appropriate, and perhaps particularly for those where maybe it's just out of character and not what they've done in the past?
Yes, really great question, Anthony. Movember encourages people to reach out into the men's in their life and start conversations. We know that social connections are incredibly important in terms of encouraging men to take action on their health. So we're asking people to ask the deeper question and listen to what men have to say. You don't need to be an expert to help someone or else be the sole solution, but being there for them, listening and giving your time can be really impactful, and indeed it can be life-saving. So if you're concerned about your mates or your own mental health, reaching out and speaking to them and encouraging them to see a doctor or another professional is really important. We use a model which has got a really neat mnemonic called ALEC. ALEC stands for ask, listen, encourage, and check in. And so if you can think about that, that provides a good conversational framework to use with someone doing it tough. But beyond that, we actually have a conversational tool. So if you go to movember.com, there's a tool called Mo Conversations. And what it does in quite a neat and engaging way is guide you as a help giver through scenarios where men might be doing it tough, and almost gamifies ways that you might approach questions that will help encourage men to open up and take action, rather than perhaps not feeling listened to or not engaged. So I really encourage you to check that out.
I think there's plenty of obstacles just for individuals in terms of self-awareness and being prepared to almost self-diagnose concerns. And then I think there are plenty of men, but I'm sure it's women as well, who have maybe elements of pride where they don't feel comfortable showing vulnerability or opening up, and concerns with voicing worries to a work colleague or to someone they work for might make them seem weak, and would perhaps impact their progression moving forward. Are there organisations or companies that have worked with Movember over the years where you've seen that they've been able to help move that mental health agenda along, so it's addressed in a more positive way?
Absolutely, and we work with many leading organisations around the world in the month of Movember, but also beyond, to engage their workforces and start having these difficult conversations. Once you scratch the surface, you realise how prevalent mental health challenges are in the world, and people need not feel embarrassed or ashamed, because essentially half the people in the world, and many people on an episodic basis, will go through tough times. And we know that for men in particular, there are trigger points or at-risk times in a man's life, and this is true for women too, but let's focus on men for a second. For example, young men are hugely at risk as they struggle to find their identity and place in the world. We know that new dads, for example, often have a difficult time. So if we can have a look at these trigger points and job stress or financial loss or relationship breakdowns or other trigger points, we can step in when we're seeing incidents and really help. That can be enormously helpful. For example, we work with lots of different organisations, like Rio Tinto is one, which is obviously a big global mining company. We work very closely with their workforces, which are predominantly male-led, to talk about how to enable conversations and how to spot the signs of mental health crises in colleagues and friends, and how to remove the stigma and shame and the idea that men don't talk about this type of stuff.
Yeah, and there's a real generational shift, I think, to some degree on this. And I was amazed when I found out that Movember has raised more than $1 billion from what started out as something a little bit amusing, I think, in
yes,
just the return of the Mo. I think, as you know, I'm planning on attempting to grow the trucker Mo this year, which my wife and others think will be relatively frightening for small children. But you must have seen or heard of some pretty entertaining stories and so on over the journey of Movember, where such an important and really serious collection of causes and topics are addressed in a way that's light and entertaining. Are there any that come to mind?
Yeah, absolutely. Other than the spectacular mows that we see out there, and if you go on our website or just look at our advertising, our tagline is "Whatever you grow will save a bro," and we have pictures of straggly ones and truckers and handlebars and so on and so forth. But we always try and marry the cause of doing good with having fun. And there's been some enormously creative things that I've done, and some really, frankly, silly things. We have a member of staff who raises funds every year by running around the Botanical Gardens in Melbourne several times in the month wearing a hot dog costume. And she's legendary for it, which is fantastic. We've had groups of people skydiving in a mankini to raise funds. We've had Mo brothers take part in life drawing classes. We've had less crazy stuff, just like hosting morning teas and golf days, etc. But whatever galvanizes groups of people, gets them taking part in raising funds, but also raising awareness for this really important cause, we totally back.
Absolutely. I've already challenged a few people across the region who don't believe they've got the capability to grow a Mo. And I've challenged that in the first instance, but also suggested there are many ways you can get involved with Movember other than growing a moustache. What are some of the other ways that people can get involved and contribute to this great cause?
Yes, I will definitely provide you some different ways, but I would just say for those who are feeling hesitant about, whether they're follically blessed or not, some of the worst moustaches invite the best conversation, so give it a go. But if you don't want to grow a bow, or you can't, in my case, I clearly can't, as much as I try, you can also move for Movember. So this is what I'm going to do this year. Commit to running or walking 60 kilometres over the month or more. That's 60 kilometres for the 60 men, tragically, that we lose to suicide each hour around the world. You can join a team or move solo. You can host a moment, so rally a crew, have a great time for a good cause. That might be Zoom-led, or it might be, you're physically getting together for a barbecue or a party or a trivia night or something. And then one that we've introduced this year called Mow Your Own Way, which is basically people coming up with silly and epic challenges like some of the ones I talked about. I know that there's a bunch of guys who are planning to jet ski up the Queensland coast for about 1,200 kilometres and that's mowing your own way. It's an epic challenge that really inspires others to get on board.
Okay, fantastic. Well, Michelle, thank you very much for taking the time to have a chat with us, and good luck for what's a very, very big period ahead. And to everyone at Page who's listening in, get involved. It doesn't matter whether it's me or your team captains in different countries. You will be harassed to get involved, so you might as well avoid the harassment and just volunteer in the first place. So thank you all, and good luck. Thanks again, Michelle.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.